This year's election is about unity and about the skills a governor needs to help build a better tomorrow. Those are the same skills that even his critics acknowledge Edwin Edwards has in rich abundance. He's unmatched at working with the legislature, according to the Baton Rouge Morning Advocate, with an ability to pull people together. Cooperative, competent, and sensitive to the needs of others, says the Leesville Daily Leader. And Edwards has the skills to pull various factions together to get things done. Leadership, to bring Louisiana together again. Edwin Edwards, Governor.
It's the Hurwitz Men's and Units warehouse sale, but hurry, tomorrow's the last day.
Tomorrow is the last day for the biggest sale of the year with 50 to 70% off.
You'll get the world's largest selection of quality furnishings at warehouse prices.
Save 50 to 70% on a great selection, Baker, Henry Don, Drexel, and more.
You'll get big savings at Hurwitz Men's and Units, too.
It's the biggest sale of the year. Save 50 to 70% at 700 Chapatula Street.
So come to Hurwitz Men's and Units big warehouse sale, the affordable dream.
This is an Eyewitness News special presentation. Live from our French Quarter studios, WWL-TV Channel 4 presents Campaign 91, the statewide debate, with gubernatorial candidates David Duke and Edwin Edwards. Now, here's moderator John Snell.
Good evening and welcome to our live one-hour debate between the runoff candidates for governor, State Representative David Duke and former Governor Edwin Edwards. This program is being broadcast in 5 of Louisiana's major metropolitan areas. Reporters representing those areas will question the candidates. The panel members are John Dennison of KNOE in Monroe, Blue Rolfes of KLFY in Lafayette, Signora Thomas of KTBS in Shreveport, and Barry Irwin of WBRZ in Baton Rouge. Before we begin, let me explain the ground rules which we're operating under. First, the candidates will have 2 minutes and 30 seconds each to make an opening statement. The order of the presentation was determined earlier tonight by a flip of a coin. After the opening remarks, we'll begin the question and answer session. The panelists will ask a question of one candidate who will have 1 minute and 30 seconds to answer. Then the other candidate will also have 1.5 minutes to respond. The panelist may redirect his question to the first candidate only if it is clear that the question is not being answered. However, he or she is allowed to interrupt only once. At the end of the program, the candidates will both again have 2.5 minutes for closing statements. The order also determined by a coin toss. We'll now begin with an opening statement from Mr. Edwards.
Good evening and thank you for watching. First, I want to thank those of you who supported me in the first election, and I want to ask for your continued support as we approach November the 16th. And to those of you who may have supported other candidates, in a strange way, your vote may actually determine who will be governor. And it's to you I hope tonight we can give you some insight into the two of us to help you make up your mind, not for Edwin Edwards or for anybody else except the state of Louisiana, your future. This election is not about the past. It's really about the future. It's about the future of the Louisiana we love. The person you will elect as governor will preside over a $9 billion budget, 75,000 state employees. He will have to work with the legislature, about 30 of whom will be new people. He will be head of the National Guard and head of the state police. He will set the tone for us in education, in the environment, in economic development, in tourism. He will work with our fishermen and our farmers, with those who labor in the factories and plants, and along the highways and byways of our great state. Make no mistake about it, the future of the state is in balance. And I hope tonight we can convince you to join us. Because of the nature of my opposition, something really good has happened to me in the last 2 weeks, and I really believe to the state. You see, I've been able to now come together with a coalition of people who heretofore have never supported me. And I've really enjoyed working with them as we've put together a coalition of labor and business, those who are concerned about the development of our state. I'm going to take that coalition into the transition after the election, have them help me get the best qualified people from Louisiana to work with me in my administration. I'm going to use their support and guidance in the next few years to set a new tone and a new direction for Louisiana. Nobody wants to be governor of Louisiana more than I do because I have a point to prove. I really think we can do better than we've done, And I have no other agenda. I'm running for no other public office. I have no desire at all in life except to be a good governor for you and to have you think better of me than some of you have. I hope you'll give me the chance because I think it's in your interest, and I think it's in Louisiana's interest. For that, I will thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Edwards. An opening remark now from Mr. Duke.
Thank you as well for giving us the opportunity to be with you this evening and talk about the vital issues before us for our state. You know, Governor Edwards talked about good government setting a new tone. That's about the best speech I've heard since Doug Green said the same thing 4 years ago when he ran for insurance commissioner. I'd like us to look at the way Louisiana's been for the last 20 years. Look at our crime in our streets. Look at the big government, the high taxes on business and the consumer. Look at the corruption we've had in government in the state over the last 20 years. Look at the fact we have the highest toxic waste dumping in this state of any state of the United States of America. Look at the fact that after 12 years of Edwin Edwards, we had the lowest teacher salaries in the entire United States of America. We have to have a change, ladies and gentlemen. We've got to have someone who will stand up. And no, I don't have the endorsements that Edwin Edwards has. Doug Green had a lot of endorsements too. The only endorsement that I have or that I want is that of the people of this state. The men and women who are tired of the political shenanigans that have been going on, the inside deals, the exchanging favors for positions in government, for appointments and commissions on boards and commissions. People are tired of that. People want to change. And we've got to have someone who will stand up and speak about the issues honestly and openly and courageously. And I will address those issues. I will talk about the sources of crime. I will talk about the sources of corruption in government. I will talk about the fact that we need a man who will stand forward and work honestly and openly for the things you talk about in your homes. Yes, we need welfare reform in our state. We need to encourage people to work. We need to slow down the illegitimacy. We need to make sure that people have something to strive for in life. We've got to improve education. That means better teacher salaries. That means more VOTEC educational programs. It means eliminating forced busing that so hurt our public schools. Yes, we've got to clean up the environment. And yes, we've got to clean up government. I have no big endorsements, but I'm looking for the endorsement of the people. I stand up for you and speak for you. And now I need your help to make me governor so we can turn this state around and not have the same policies we've had for the last 20 years, policies of neglect and ruin for Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. Duke. Let's now go to our question and answer session of our program, and we begin with a question from John Dennison to Mr. Edwards.
Mr. Edwards, to win the support of environmentalists, you have promised to maintain the Department of Environmental Quality. Does that mean that you will keep its funding at its current levels and support its current regulatory objectives as well?
Absolutely. I passed the first statewide Environmental Protection Act in 1979. It's been copied by about 22 other states. Dave Treen is responsible for creating a department on environmental quality. I kept the department when I became governor in 1984. It is my intention and my commitment to appoint a secretary and undersecretaries that will have the support of the environmental groups. As a matter of fact, I've already met with the environmental groups to discuss that with them, and I make that commitment again tonight. I'm going to maintain my commitment to discontinue shale dredging in the lakes. I'm going to instruct the secretaries and the people in the department to rigorously follow the rules and regulations. We are not going to permit anything to happen to our state if it can be prohibited, because the environment is very important to all of us. But I think we can do that consistent with a desire on our part to get good jobs that do not spoil the environment, but give opportunities for our people to work.
All right, Mr. Edwards, thank you. Mr. Duke, your response.
My response is, John and the people of this state, is Edwin Edwards was governor 20 years ago. During that period, we became the biggest toxic waste dumping ground of the United States of America. During that period, we faced terrible damage to our environment. During that period, Governor Edwards did nothing to protect our wetlands. During that period, in fact, the last year of his administration, 87, he didn't even bother to fund the operations of the DEQ. Yes, we need environmental protection. We need a balance between the environment and industry in Louisiana to protect both interests. But we need a person who is committed to the values of this environment And it will not simply say things during elections looking for endorsements and committed people. We've got to begin to start talking about the truth all the time. In the House of Representatives, I co-authored the bill for wetland preservation in Louisiana. I've worked for those principles. I'll continue to work for those principles. I consider myself an ecologist. I consider myself a person who will fight for the environment. And I won't do that just during election time in terms of rhetoric. I will do that every day that I'm governor of the state of Louisiana.
Mr. Duke, thank you. A question now to Mr. Duke from Blue Rolfes.
Mr. Duke, there is a projected $1 billion shortfall in next year's state budget. You've said one answer to the state's financial problems is welfare reform. Given the fact that the welfare program is only 2.3% of the state budget, how much impact will such reform have?
Well, the 2% that you're referring to is the amount of payments and direct welfare payments to recipients here in Louisiana. The fact is that welfare has a much bigger impact than simply 2%. Because you must realize every child born into the welfare system gets free medical care at the taxpayer's expense. There's education costs which amount to $4,000 a year in the state of Louisiana on average. There's costs in terms of crime, courts and corrections. About half of our violent crime come from these elements. The biggest problem we face, or one of the biggest problems we face in Louisiana, is the welfare system. We have fewer and fewer people pulling the wagon and more people riding in the wagon in Louisiana. We can cut the budget, but we've got to cut government. Taxes are too high in our state. They stifle business. They hurt the working person in the state of Louisiana. We have vast resources from natural areas such as oil and gas, and yet we have the highest personal tax rate of any state of the South, a higher tax rate than even Massachusetts. Government's too big. It's too corrupt. That's what we've got to work on. And the welfare system does have a long-range impact on our budget and on our budget deficit in Louisiana.
Mr. Duke, thank you. Mr. Edwards, your response.
I really don't think it's fair or accurate to say that government under Buddy Romer was corrupt. It may have been too big, but that's something we're going to have to deal with, Blue, as you have suggested. The welfare system is a problem. Until 1988, by federal mandate, we could not require people training and working for those on welfare. President Reagan signed a bill in 1988 which mandated states to do that. In 1989 and 1990, the state legislature passed 3 separate bills. Mr. Duke voted for all 3 of them, which is called Project Independence. It now requires people, except those who have children under 1 year of age, to take training and to take jobs. It is already beginning to reduce the welfare rolls. We have 69,000 old people who are drawing welfare, 249,000 children, and many disabled. We cannot simply cut them off completely and leave them out there, because the cost would be far greater than what he is suggesting if we had to put them in hospitals and in nursing homes and in places where foster homes where we would have to pay for the full support. We need to continue our educational programs, provide more jobs for people, and work towards the happy day when only the very disabled and the very old will be getting assistance from the state. But in the meantime, we can move to that happy goal to make us all a more productive society.
You gentlemen are both making my job easy. I haven't had to call time once. A question now to Mr. Edwards from Signora Thomas.